So tonight, I'm going to speak to you about relationships and the power of relationships, okay? Most of you are here as couples, and so I'm going to speak with a couple context, but a lot of you are here, you're here as a team. So I'm going to talk to you as a team as well. My goal is that the principles in which I share with you here this evening will have a spillover effect into every relationship that you have in your life. I think that God strategically places people in your life in order to accomplish something that no one else can accomplish other than that person. And I hope that you catch that vision tonight, and I hope that it's transformational. If you're here for these couple of days and you're not expecting God to transform you, I would encourage you to stop now and invite Him to open your heart and your mind to a transformation, because that's what we're called to. We're called to transform our minds daily so that we might test the good and perfect will of God. We should be learning more about the things that we don't know daily than the things in which we do know, because they might be more important to us, if that makes sense. And so I hope today that you hear some concepts, relational concepts that you've never heard before, and I pray that it will truly be transformational. My prayer also is that you'll never be able to see another human being that God places in your midst the same way ever again. Let me say that again. My prayer is that you'll never be able to see a single human being that God ever places in your relationship or in your midst the same way ever again after our time here this evening. For those of you that are Wellington, work inside of Wellington, we'll have 3 more interactions together over the next 4 weeks. And we'll publish a schedule and get that on your calendar as soon as we leave. You'll have some homework assignments that are about 20 minutes to 25 minutes before we come together in those joint meetings. Those are all be Zoom meetings. So tonight is just a high-level overview. We only have an hour and a half. And we'll get to the meat and potatoes maybe a little bit more and more practical as we share our time together coming out of this event. Sound good? So you guys all get an assignment around that. You should be in your email inbox around Friday. And Thursday we'll send you an introduction email to that and what that might look like. So my background, I'll share. All of us have a story, right? So this is me and Elizabeth Ann. Elizabeth did not come here with me this evening, but she'll be here. Her presence will be here, and you'll know her well before the end of the evening. I'm 18 in this picture, and Elizabeth is 22. Yes, she's the one that robbed the cradle, not me. And I took her to the county courthouse on a Thursday afternoon, February the 6th, 1984, and I married her in less than 15 minutes on my afternoon break. True story. How many of you think her mother and dad were happy? What about my mom and dad? And I set off on a journey to change Elizabeth. I wanted her to do things a whole lot more like I did it. And you know what? She set off on a journey to change me. How do you think that worked out? Not real well. The first 7 years of our marriage was hell. I don't know any other category to put it in. It was not good. It was not good in any way, shape, or form. Now, Elizabeth and I, we looked real good and we smelled good. You know what I mean? We were good Southern Baptist. We were in the pew every time we had an opportunity. And we had 2 young children. We started having children at 5 years. We had 2 young children, and we had a man and a woman that led a Sunday school class for young marrieds that we attended with about 15 other couples. Bruce and Carol Mazaray. I grew up in Waco, Texas. For those of you who know about Waco, what's Waco most infamous about? Say it again. The Branch Davidians, right? I travel all over, and every time I say I'm from Waco, Branch Davidians. But not anymore, right? The Magnolia has single-handedly, right, redeemed Waco from the whole Koresh debacle, right? And Waco today doesn't look anything like it did whenever I was there. But that Sunday school class and those 2 people that chose to pour into us couples Bruce and I played golf together every Saturday morning together. I was a regional manager for Snap-on Tools Corporation at the time. And we played golf together every Saturday morning. And one Saturday morning, Bruce said, "Looks like you and Elizabeth might be struggling a little bit. Would you like a little help?" And I was humble enough to say, "Sure, why not?" And we sat down at dinner one night with Bruce and Carol Mazaray, and he put 2 pieces of paper out in front of us, one for me and one for Elizabeth. Took us about 10 minutes to fill those pieces of paper out. And he goes off into the back room, and all of a sudden we hear, you guys remember some of you are way too young for this. You won't even know what it is when I say it. But you remember the dot matrix printer? All right, so like he goes off in the back room, and all of a sudden you start hearing ta-da-ta, ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da, right? And about 10 or 15 minutes later, he comes back out, and he sets 2 little reports on the table in front of us, and he slides 2 pieces of paper out of the center of those reports, and he set them on the table. And they were visual graphics. They were the DISC profile. You guys ever heard of the DISC profile? Dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. It's the first time I'd ever been exposed to temperament. Like, you'd think being a part of a large tool corporation, and especially being in management of that large corporation, you would think that I would have been exposed to some type of temperament assessment or temperament testing. Never seen it before. And when I looked at those graphs, I looked up and I said, no wonder. I mean, they were totally opposite. What she had high, I had low. What I had high, she had low. We were opposites. And I said, no wonder. We should have never embarked on this journey. And Bruce Mazaray looked back across that table that evening, and he said, "Isn't God good?" And that was a transformational day for me. And over the next hour, Bruce opened God's Word, and he revealed to me God's divine design for our differences. It changed my life. It changed my marriage. It changed my family. And it changed my professional trajectory. I left Snap-on Tools Corporation 6 short months later, and I went to work for that man. And I spent the next 10 years helping him build a management consultant practice. And God birthed in me this whole notion of strengths. How do we hire based on strengths, and how do we release people to flourish based on their strengths? How do we just invite them to take what God gave them and simply give it away on a day-to-day basis? Wouldn't that be a novel thought? And so God put that deep in my heart, and then he started giving me scriptures around it. And I ended up writing a book series in 2003 called Leading from Your Strengths. It's impacted about 1.2 million leaders in the church. It's what we're most known for. We also do a program called Different by Design. That's what you're going to hear some of tonight, along with Leading from Your Strengths, that carry those core principles in which I feel like God has etched deep into my heart that were so transformational. And I'm so excited to be here to share them with you tonight. And as I've stated, I pray that you will never, ever be able to see a single human being that God places into your midst the same way ever again. Elizabeth and I, on February the 6th of this year, celebrated 40 years of marriage by the grace of God. By the grace of God. Weren't it for a servant and his wife that were willing to say, looks like you might need a little help. How many people sit across the table from you every day? How many couples do you serve every day that are sitting across the table and you know that they're miles apart? They're walled off from each other, they're isolated from each other, and you're trying to help them plan for their financial future, and you can't understand the reason why everything you say falls on deaf ears. Or when you say something or communicate to that couple, they both kind of nod, But then whenever they leave, they have the second conversation. You know what that conversation is? The one on the way home. You know what I'm talking about. Differences are among you everywhere, whether it's a couple sitting across the table, whether it's two business partners sitting across the table. And I can tell you that we are intrinsically selfish. And we want to put everything in our proverbial box, and we expect everyone else to do it like we do it. But that's not the way God designed it. We're different, and we're different by design. And when we lean into our differences, it actually affords us more. It gives us something that we don't have. It's additive. It's not subtractive. In fact, it's actually a multiplier if you look at it the right way and you see God's design. Make sense? Elizabeth's an artist. We lived for the last 23 years in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she takes the flora and fauna of the desert and she creates fine gourd arts, and she has collectors literally all over the world. It's incredible. We do an event called Hidden in the Hills every year, and that Hidden in the Hills is 6 days, 3 days before Thanksgiving weekend, 3 days of Thanksgiving weekend, and we have about 3,000 people through our home studio every year. It's unbelievable. This is our daughters, Amy Christina on the left, and Ashley Elizabeth. They're 14 months apart. I can still remember the day that I came home and Elizabeth was in a fetal position crying in the bed, and I said, "Baby, what is wrong?" And she said, "I'm pregnant." So the myth of breastfeeding, right? Like if you breastfeed, you won't get pregnant, that's a myth. I just want everybody in the room to know, especially those of you that are still of childbearing age, right? 14 months apart, they were close, but boy, were they different. One a blonde, one a brunette. Right? The way in which we parented one, we couldn't parent the other. The way we communicated to one, we couldn't communicate to the other. What broke one spirit didn't break the other spirit. They were different. And so are we. Amy Christina was a world-class mountain biker. This is her competing in Glasgow, Scotland in the World Cup. She finished 23rd in the world with the USA cycling team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You do not want to follow her around on a mountain bike, especially in the desert. She says when Dad says, "Watch this," you probably ought to get your camera out. And there's some truth in that. So we have what we call these little teddy bear cholla hedgehogs in the desert, right? Have thorns on them about this long, and on the end they have a hook. And yes, this was me following her around, and the ends of those fingers and underneath my fingernails were teddy bear cholla hedgehog needles. Yes, I spent 4 hours in the stat clinic with them putting blockers in each knuckle and taking a IV needle and running down into my finger, and the doctor putting his thumb over it going, oh yes, it was so painful. It was unbelievable. I've never experienced so much pain in my life. 7 stitches, yes, in my left leg, still have the scar to prove it. This is her and her husband, Jeremiah Chaparas. He's a giant. She's almost 6 foot. She gave 6 years of her life to the Army, and she's an artist too. This is her little man. How do you know that your grandson is going to grow up to be a plumber? That's it right there. That's his daddy on the left, that's me on the right, and we're plumbing their trailer, and he had to be in the middle of it, right? Now this is little Arrowin. Merrick Liam, he's going to be the plumber. Little Arrowin, this is her personality. I mean, she puts her glasses on upside down. She's bouncing off the walls. She always is cracking a joke. She's got that smile, right? And when she participates in the 4th of July parade, she can't just go watch, right? She's got to be in it. She's got to be in the thick of things. Somebody said, I'm an introvert, right? Well, she's an extrovert. Little Merrick Liam, he's an introvert, okay? So let me just give you the first thing that I hope moves you and shifts you in your heart. When little Merrick Liam Or little Ashley, let me talk about Amy Christina. Little Amy Christina, the mountain biker, okay? When it comes to problem solving, do you think she's aggressive or do you think she'd be reflective when it comes to problem solving? Mountain biker. Aggressive, right? She's reflective, incredibly reflective. She didn't lead the first lap. She probably didn't lead the second lap. But by the third lap, she started eating them. You know what I'm saying? Okay? Very reflective, very strategic in the way she competed. Well, me, I'm on the opposite end of that continuum. Okay? I'm a little aggressive when it comes to problem solving. So when Amy Christina, being an introvert, used to find herself in a conflict as a little girl on the playground, okay? What do you think Amy Christina would do if she's reflective? She's in a conflict in the playground with her peers. What do you think she does being reflective? She takes a step out. And what do you think her dad does being on the aggressive side of that continuum? Sweetie, you got to get back in there, baby. You got to get what you get. And then she'd step back out of that circle. And I'd take my knee. And I'd push her back in there. And I'd whisper to her. I already said I was a regional manager at the time. Didn't have an inventory one Saturday morning. I come bopping down the stairs. Elizabeth had an amazing breakfast. Sat down. My kids are there. And I said, Daddy doesn't have to go to work today. You want to go to the park? What do you think Amy Christina said? I want you to think about that a minute. At 5, 6 years of age, I had effectively communicated to my youngest daughter that the way God made her was not fearful and wonderful. And that if she was going to be in our relationship, she needed to be a whole lot more like Dad. I want you to think about the people in which you encounter, especially the ones that you love the most. And what do you do on a day-to-day basis to communicate to them that if they're not like you, they might not belong? And that they need to change the way in which they solve problems, or the way in which they trust, or the way in which they look people in the eye, or the way in which they deal with change and the pace of life, or the rules in which mom and dad are setting, and the judgments that we make that might not be right. My grandmother was from the old school. Do you know what great-great-grandmothers thought about left-handed people? What do you think great-great-grandmothers thought about left-handed people? Hold on to that for me. What do you think my great-great-grandmother thought about left-handed people?
Well, I'm going to say we, because I am one, are wicked and evil and possibly even satanic.
My great-great-grandmother thought it was a mark of the devil. It was evil. Would you do me a favor? What's your name?
Marty?
Marty, would you hand me your pen? Marty, if I ask you to hand me that pen 100 times, can you tell me how many times you would have moved that mic out of your dominant hand to your non-dominant hand and picked that pen up with your dominant hand? Every time.
Oh.
Can you tell me who gave that to you?
God.
God gave it to you. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Each and every one of us have a predisposition, the way in which God created us fearfully and wonderfully, to respond to problems, to respond to the information in which we see every day, to the pace of life and change, and to the rules set by others. It is normal human behavior. Did you have to think about handing me that pen?
No.
It was your subconscious. Very important. Watch this. Very important. Marty, would you hand me your pen? It's everything within her not to do what? Hand me that pen with her non-dominant hand. Because now she knows how the game's played. Right? And this is how we live out most of our relationships. Based on what we're rewarded for or what's acceptable and unacceptable. If my grandmother was here, my brother and I, when we used to go eat at my grandmother's house, and my brother would pick his fork up and eat his first bite of food with his left hand, what do you think my grandmother did? What do you think she did?
Probably smacked his hand and then moved the fork to the other hand.
She sent him out back. She made him pick his own switch.
Yep.
She would stripe his legs and send him to bed without his dinner. True story. How many of you think I wanted to go eat at my grandmother's house?
No, thank you.
What do you think about my brother? The consequences of the way we do relationship, the consequences of how we view people that are different than us, that approach things different than us, is very, very important to the image of the invisible God in which the people see that we encounter. Very important. Especially the one sitting next to you, the one called your suitable helper. Especially the children in which God has entrusted to you to raise, so that they would be an inheritance not only in that generation, but the next generation. What is it that we're passing down to our children? What is it that people see when they encounter our marriage? What is it that people see when we encounter the relationships in which we serve, the people in which we serve? Do they see a selfless, zealous individual seeking the true good of the person sitting across the table? Or are they just a paycheck? Which is it? I don't know. You're the only one that knows that. But they know, I promise. The one sitting across the table from you. If my grandmother was here, I would hope that she would be able to admit what she thought to be true turned out not to be true. Do you know that statistically left-handed people have a higher IQ than right-handed people? Statistically, they're more creative than right-handed people. Right? So my grandmother thought something to be true that wasn't true, and if she were here today, I hope that she would be able to humble herself enough to be able to look my brother square in the eye and to ask his forgiveness for living as an ignorant person, for living as someone unaware to the truth. See, as you encounter the truth today, even in this room, you will have it will be the most difficult thing for you to do, to look that truth square in the eye and to choose to do something different tomorrow than you did it today. Because it will require humility. And humbleness is not a big attribute of America today, or Americans. And only through the power of the Holy Spirit that lives within us do we have the ability, through that power that lives within us, to truly humble ourselves and to live different tomorrow than we live today, especially with the one next to you. And I'll share some more stories about me and Elizabeth along the way. Thank you very much. So these are the other three. This is Heidi Maeve on the right, Merrick Liam in the middle, and then this is now a recent picture of Arrowin. And look at her knees. It's unbelievable. Okay? I love sharing this little clip right here. So we were at the house one Sunday for Sunday lunch, and Heidi said that, Arrow said this, and after she said it, I'm like, you got to say this again. Okay? So just listen to this clip. Tell me about Satan again.
Satan is as small as a booger, and God is the size of your house.
Out of the mouth of babes, right? Isn't that awesome? So this is what Amy Christina left home in, a 1971 Volkswagen bus. I said, honey, you'll never have a Volkswagen. I had one. It left me stranded all the time. You're not having one. That's what she left home in. This is our oldest daughter, Ashley Elizabeth. They're respectfully 34 and 35 years old today. This is her wedding day. Her husband, Trey, they live in Texas. They're part of the A&M system. They're A&M graduates. I've been in that stadium. I don't know how it stays together when the people are in there and jumping, and I'm like, the whole thing shakes. Like, it's unbelievable. And they own Harvest Coffee and Uptown Brunch. So they are in the coffee business, and they're also in the Uptown Brunch. They do a lunch and a breakfast and a lunch brunch as well. And they do this kind of, you know, how the coffee stuff looks today. These are the 2 grandchildren that she's given us. This is Birdie, after her grandmother, named after her grandmother. And in the bottom right is River Oliver. I stand before you today not as a perfect man. My relationships aren't perfect. I've been in the relationship business a long time, but my relationships aren't perfect either. My daughter and my son-in-law haven't spoke to me for 4 years, or my wife, and we've never met those 2 grandchildren. And it absolutely breaks my heart. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to apologize deeply enough. I don't know how to solve the problem. But I'm believing that someday God will solve the problem and He'll restore the years that the locusts have eaten away. And I'm believing for that. And I would ask that you would join me in praying for our family and our daughter, our son-in-law, and our children, and the day in which we can look them face to face and tell them how much we love them and seek their forgiveness. And so this is what she drove away from home in. 2 very different young ladies. So what I'd love to do now is kind of shift gears, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit about these core principles in leading from your strengths. We're going to do kind of a devotional time, and then we're going to go into what we call the 4 inescapable areas of difference. I've already mentioned them to you. They're how we problem solve together, how we process information together, manage change together, and face risk. And we'll do a little exercise, kinesthetic exercise along the way so we can keep things moving and keep you alive. Helpful so far? Are you glad that you came? Okay, awesome. So Hugo, you guys familiar with Hugo? So this great movie clip, this is he and his friend up in the bell tower. And they're having a conversation. It's a very powerful conversation. And I'm going to play this clip for you. And what I'd love for you to do is take some notes around the clip. What is this that you hear in their conversation? Try not to get caught up in all of the cinematography, right? Because it's beautiful. But what is it that you hear in the conversation? What are the words they're saying to each other? Why are they even having this conversation? And how might we use that to gain some clarity here this evening?
Monsieur Lebis gave me a book the other night. He's always doing that. Sending books to a good home. That's what he calls it. He's got real purpose. What do you mean? Everything has a purpose. Even machines. Clocks tell the time and trains take you places. They do what they're meant to do. Like Monsieur Lebis. Maybe that's why broken machines make me so sad. They can't do what they're meant to do. Maybe it's the same with people. If you lose your purpose, it's like you're broken. Like Papa George. Maybe we can fix him.
Is that your purpose? Fixing things?
I don't know. It's what my father did.
I wonder what my purpose is.
I don't know.
Maybe if I had known my parents, I would know.
Come with me. Right after my father died, I'd come up here a lot. I'd to imagine the whole world was one big machine. Machines never come with any extra parts, you know. They always come with the exact amount they need. So I figured if the entire world was one big machine, I couldn't be an extra part. I had to be here for some reason. And that means you have to be here for some reason too.
Yeah, so this is participatory part of the session, right? So what'd you hear? What's the conversation about? What are some of the things that you heard? Everything has a purpose. Okay, great. What else?
Everything comes with the right amount of pieces that it needs.
Everything comes with just the right amount of pieces. There are no spare parts. Okay, great. What else? Say it again. Okay, that people feel broken without a purpose, right? Maybe if I'd have known my mom and dad, I would know what my purpose is, right? Do you think that's why Mr. LeBee is broken? He's lost his purpose. It's good. What else? Everything works together, right? It would be impossible for the clock to tell time properly, or trains take trains where they go, right? Clocks tell time and so on. If there was a missing part. It's good. What else? Anything else? So every one of us in here intrinsically desires to add value, right? We want to be valued. We want to be seen as valuable. And we want to be contributing. We want to be playing our part. So what is it that you think happens when in a relationship, okay, whether it's husband and wife or whether it's siblings or whether it's friends, whether it's co-workers, okay, doesn't matter the context. I'm just talking about relationship and relational capital, okay? What do you think happens when somebody feels undervalued or devalued in a relationship? What do you think happens? Say it again. Well, it's not good. That's true. But tell me what happens. It's demoralizing. Okay, what else? They lose motivation. Okay, what else? Say it again. They don't perform well, right? They hide. Okay? Right? I mean, if I'm not adding value, I'm going to hide. Right? What else? Good observation. Say it again. Resentment. So resentment builds up over time that leads maybe to anger, right? What else? Breeds conflict. Okay, what else? Any other thoughts? Breaks down communication. There is no communication, right? It's like the example that we did here. All of our conversations are based on what I think you want me to say. I don't have liberty to actually say what I really need to say, or what I think I could actually contribute at the highest level. Any other thoughts? If you boil it down, okay, it boils down to isolation. Right? It will always isolate you from others. It will never draw you to someone else if you don't feel valued, or if you don't value them. It will always isolate you. It will always push you apart. And the more and more that we devalue each other, the further and further that we'll get apart over time. Make sense? So the Corinthians, let's talk about the Corinthians for a moment, and let's use them as our biblical foundation for what it might look like when we devalue someone. So the Corinthians, do you think the Corinthians were united or divided? They were divided. They were divided enough that Paul would write them a letter. And they were divided over lots of things. Who they followed. I follow Paul. No, I follow Apollo. No. You follow Jesus. All right. So Paul wanted to let them know you follow Jesus. Okay. They were also divided over the elevation of some gifts over others, that some were more valuable or some more important than others. And so I think once again we can learn some things out of the Corinthians, because the chapter 12 of this Corinthians passage tells us that unity and diversity in the body of Christ is very, very important to God. In fact, verse 13 chapter 13 is a love chapter, right? It's the infamous love chapter. So once you understand why I've placed such diversity of differences together and how it's called to drive unity, the only glue that will actually empower you to do that is love. And so what is love? And we'll talk a little bit about that today. How do I actually love God and how do I love my neighbor? For all of the law and the prophets actually hang on those two commands. What does that look like? And what does the world say love is versus what is love? So in the Corinthians, chapter 12, before Paul wrote this passage, in verse 1, he says, I write these things to you that you may no longer be unaware. So verse 1 says, I write these things to you, this chapter to you, so that you may no longer be unaware. Okay, so I want you to think about relationally, just like my grandmother, she was unaware. Until I sat around that dinner table with Bruce and Carol Mazeray, I was unaware. I was ignorant. I never set off to be maliceful towards Elizabeth or to intentionally devalue her. Or my brother. I lost my brother. Yes, the one that was left-handed to cancer at the age of 27. He was my only sibling brother, my only sibling. And it was very difficult. And through that process of losing him, it really helped me start crystallizing what is this thing called relationship, and how did I miss out on that? And boy, did we devalue each other. We were fisticuff brothers. I mean, we had very little love for each other. And I regret that. I have deep regret about that. And hopefully someday I'll look him eye to eye. So if we can start from the premise that there are many things that we do in our relationship because we're simply unaware. And if we'll start with that fundamental mooring, just as Paul did with the Corinthians, then I think that might be where our greatest transformation comes from, because it gives us the liberty with humility to look somebody square in the eye and say, I've just simply been ignorant. I've thought certain things to be true that aren't true. And I need your forgiveness, and I'd like to live different with you tomorrow than I lived with you today. Humility is the glue. And that's what it was for the Corinthians too. In this passage, Paul talks about there are many parts, but one body. That word parts literally means equal units. If you do a word study on it, it literally means equal units. Is when the equal units come together under the lordship of Jesus Christ, we become the body of Christ. Just like we saw in the video, it's when all of the pieces come together and are placed in the right spot and do their functions. We can tell time. The clock does what it's supposed to do. The same with us. God is strategic about the way He places the parts, who He invites into our relationships and why. And I pray that our eyes will be open to that, just like Elizabeth Ann and my eyes were open, and through a lot of my other relationships as well. But what we tend to see inside of teams and inside of relationships is that over time, if we're not careful, we'll think too highly of ourselves than we ought, and we'll elevate what we bring to the table above what others bring to the table. We'll think what we have is more important than them. And when we elevate ourselves above others, it communicates to them they don't bring value, and it will always lead to isolation once again. So I want you to examine the relationships in which you might have the greatest tension in. And what are you doing unknowingly and unwittingly to communicate to them they don't bring value? And seek their forgiveness, because they bring value. God would never, He's not like your earthly father. He would never give you a blessing in one hand and a curse in the other. He's not. Everything that God gives you, He gives you to be prosperous, to be productive, to be fruitful. Everything that God gives you. For He's your heavenly Father. Do you see people that way? Do you see Him being that strategic about the people He's placing next to you in order to accomplish something in you, for you, and with you that's impossible on your own. 14 and 15 says, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to belong. The conversation is about belonging. I've already shared the story about how I pushed Amy Christina into the circle and communicated to her that she doesn't belong unless she's more like me. Think about the people that you lead. And how do you communicate to them? What do you communicate to them? Do you communicate value to them and that they're necessary and that they bring something of incredible value to the organization and to the team? Or do you communicate to them that they need to lead more like you in order to belong or in order to be effective? What about in your most meaningful relationships? What about the person sitting next to you? Do you communicate to them that the way God made them fearfully and wonderfully isn't good enough and they need to change who they are to belong? And then in verse 17 it says, if the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? So what I want you to see is that there's incredible value in our diversity. And that if we were all the same, that we would lose something of incredible value. In other words, if Elizabeth and I were the same, we would be missing something. If we recruited people, what we tend to see leaders do is they want to recruit people that act and think and do like they do. They solve problems like they do. They process information like they do, and so on. And why do you think that we'd want to recruit people that act and think and do just like we do? Why do you think? Because they're like us, and we think that's going to convert to what? That's going to translate to what?
More power.
More productivity, more power, right? More synergy, more, right? Well, what if that wasn't true when you want to know? Scripture clearly tells us we'd lose something of significant value. There is great value in our differences. Think about the admins that you have and the complexity of the work that you do. Half of us in this room don't need to be down in those details. And if we were down in those details, right, we probably would not be near as efficient as we could be by delegating that to somebody that naturally does details well. Does that make sense? It's not complicated. But we have to see value in that. Or when my CPA says, well, we really can't do that. And I say, why not? Right? And I question that. That's good. That's my DNA. It's okay for me to question. And then he needs to help me understand what I can do to stay out of an all-expense paid vacation to Club Fed. Right? But I want to be close to the line. I don't want to render under Caesar only what is due to him and not a penny more, if you know what I mean. Right? It's good to question. And it's also good to follow the rules. Rules are there for a reason. But rules should be there to serve us, not us serve them. That's the litmus test. And that's how we bring objectivity into our conversations. Verse 18. In verse 18, God said that He has arranged, placed, or set the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. This word placed or set, bless you, is only used in one other place of all of Scripture. Only one other place in all of Scripture. And it's when the stones of the tribe are being placed into the ephod of the high priest before he enters the Holy of Holies. It's a jeweler's term. So what I would like to do is I would like to talk about what the jeweler is trying to accomplish when he places a stone, when he sets the stone. So the setting, right, is what the stone sets in. It secures the stone to the ring. So what do you think that the jeweler is trying to accomplish? There's three things when the jeweler fashions that setting and places the stone. I've already let one out of the bag. What do you think one of the things that the jeweler's trying to do? The jeweler's trying to do three strategic things, but what do you think one of them is? Say it again.
Increase the light.
Thank you. Appreciate that. To show off the beauty of the stone, to increase the light. Set it in a way in which it shines forth the best light of the stone. Can we all agree on that? So when you encounter conflict in your most meaningful relationships, somebody works for you, they're your subordinate. Maybe it's your teammate. Maybe it's the one sitting next to you. Maybe it's your teenage child. Any relationship, when you find yourself in conflict with them, what's the first thing that comes across your mind? Is it that they diminish your light or that they increase your light? There is no middle ground. It is one or the other. And our flesh wants to always be right. Always. And therefore we'll fight for what we think's right because we think our light is better than your light. And we elevate ourselves above others, as we've already stated. And when we do that, it will always create isolation. Make sense? Elizabeth increases my light. The first 7 years of our marriage, I did not understand that at all. It was a transformational moment when I understood what she brought to the table, I didn't. And what I brought to the table, she didn't. And when those two things came together, we have the ability to accomplish things together neither one of us can accomplish on our own. That was a transformational thought. I want you to think in the garden, in the midst of all creation, before Satan fell, before we knew evil, God created me and you on day 6. And at the end of creating me and you, do you know what God said? He didn't say it was good. He said it was very good. And before he said another word, he said, no, it's not. Hold the phone. This is not good. This is not good. It is not good that you be alone. Can you imagine the conversation? It's not recorded in Scripture, but can you imagine the conversation? What do you mean alone, God? I don't know what that word means. Like, we're in perfect oneness here in the garden. I don't know what that word means. What is alone? Now, this is going to break some of your theology. But I submit to you that God looked man square in the eye and said, I'm not enough. You need someone to do life with. You need someone to journey with. And you don't need just anybody. You need what? Someone suitable to help you. Do you believe that God is that strategic about the person that He's sitting next to you? Can you believe that God is that strategic about the people He's placing in your life? The employees in which you hire, the co-workers in which you serve with, the people in which He places across the desk from you to serve, are all there strategically placed in order to bring Him glory, in order to bring Him light. Do we see it that way? What do you think the second thing is the jeweler's trying to do? Security. Everybody think about security? My wife, Elizabeth, we were doing a little remodel on a little 37 farmhouse in North Carolina to be close to our grandchildren. And she comes in and she's putting meatballs together and she looks down and she goes, my diamond's missing. She'd been outside knocking pallets apart all day and wore a ring and it was gone. Like, we looked for hours. And then I called my insurance agent and said, hey, Elizabeth, lost her main stone. And he goes, oh, so sad. I said, wasn't insured. I said, oh, really? How could that be? Don't we do an annual checkup? How is my wife's ring not? I think it had $500 on it, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. Security. Okay, so here's my question. When you encounter conflict, misunderstanding, disagreement in your most meaningful relationships, Does it make you feel insecure or more secure? There is no gray. It's either one or the other. And where's your insecurity driven from if God's intent is to always increase our light? See, when we encounter differences in our relationships, no matter what they are, think about the last client that challenged you across the table. Your hackles got up a little bit. Your emotions started flowing. What do you think that did to the relational capital of the person sitting across the table from you? Every relationship and how we respond is really important. Really important to the way in which we exhibit the invisible God here on earth. Really important. Insecure or more secure? Most of us insecure. And that insecurity drives us to be defensive, right? It drives us to be judgmental and to exit most of the conversations. I wrote a book with a guy named John Trent. Many of you might know him. He and Gary Smalley wrote together for years. And he wrote on the blessing and the curse. And one of the simplest things I ever saw John illustrate is the difference between what a blessing looks like and a curse looks like. Would you help me, sir? Sean, would you step out here? How are we doing on time? What time is it?
22 minutes.
So, Sean, you and I are in a conflict. We're in a disagreement, okay? And you're already standing pretty good distance away from me. You guys see that? Come a little closer, Sean. Thank you. That's good right there. You and I are in a disagreement. I just want him to be able to see the camera. You and I are in a disagreement, okay? And we're at odds with each other for whatever reason, all right? If I wanted to curse you, okay, what's the first thing comes across your mind? Curse.
A word.
Words, with words. And the tongue has the power of life and death, right? Words. It's not the words that we use. If I want to curse you, Sean, I simply do this. Step away. Withdraw. Don't communicate. That's what a curse looks like. I don't love you enough to do this. When you and I are in a disagreement, do I believe that God's placed you in my relationship in order to increase our light and to drive a deeper level of security? And am I willing to submit to our differences instead of resist our differences? Am I willing to lean in? Or do I always just exit? Which is it? It's one or the other. There is no gray. We either exit emotionally, physically, or we love each other deeply enough to lean in and discover what it is that God has for us that nothing else can produce. See, James calls it pure joy when we lean in. He says when we lean in to our trials and tribulations, that God will produce something in us that nothing else can produce.
Yep.
Lean in or lean out? Which is it?
Lean in.
Lean in. Let it be said of us. Right? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right? Is that illustration helpful? So I want you to think about where you're leaning in and where you're leaning out. When you find yourself in conflict or misunderstanding, seek to understand. Lean in. Be open and honest. Not judgmental or try and get your thoughts above somebody else's thoughts. Be willing to say that God's thoughts are higher than my thoughts. His ways are higher than my ways. And collectively together here, God has something for us. See, there is nothing that unites two people together more than pursuing a common outcome. Nothing. There is nothing that will unite two people together more. Co-workers, right? Parents, wives, husbands. Nothing will unite you together more than pursuing a common outcome. The problem is that we tend to pursue our outcome, not a common outcome. We tend to bring our agenda to every conversation when we should be leaving our agenda behind. Make sense? What do you think the third thing is that the jeweler's trying to do? What do you think the third thing the jeweler's trying to do? No right or wrong answers. What do you think? Increase the value. How does he increase the value?
By giving it a platform, giving
That is a great answer, but not what I'm looking for. We measure by cut and clarity.
I was just wondering, how does everybody get these right?
Anybody else? What do you think? No right or wrong answers. What's the third thing you think the jeweler's trying to do? Say it again. Don't be bashful.
Trying to sell it.
Trying to sell it, okay? Once again, shine the best light and so on. I'd say it's in that category. Listen, we could talk all day long and we wouldn't get it, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to give it to you. Okay? Are you ready? The third thing that the jeweler is trying to do when he set the stone, can you tell me what that is right there? He's trying to hide the flaw. So at just the right time, God so loved the world that He sent His only begotten Son to do something for you you couldn't do for yourself. And at just the right time, He knew that your heart was prepared to humble yourself enough to say, I need you. And you were changed from everlasting to everlasting. Do you believe that God had you in mind when He created you? And do you believe that God had her in mind when He created you? And that at just the right time, He placed a suitable helper next to you in order to do something for you you couldn't do for yourself? And do you believe that God is strategically bringing people into your staff and into your team and across the table from you in every one of your relationships in order to do something in you and for you that you can't do for yourself? And the same for them. It's reciprocal. See, Paul says it's your spiritual act of worship in 12:1. I urge you, brother, in view of God's great mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable, pleasing to God. Everything God has given you, He's given you to give away to someone else. Everything. Just like God gave His Son for us, He gave everything. Do you live your life that way in every relationship that God brings into your midst? Everyone, especially the people you serve across the table from you. A good friend of mine, Dr. Dale Tackett, did a project called the Truth Project. And he defines love in a way I'd never heard it defined before, and I think it's just so beautiful. I'd love to share it with you. I'd love for you to write it down. Dale says, with his study from Genesis to Revelation, that if you could sum up the word love and define it, it would be this. It is the steadfast, zealous, selfless seeking of another's true good. It is the steadfast, zealous, selfless seeking of another's true good. Isn't that a great definition? Are we steadfast in our relationships? Do we lean in? Or do we always exit stage right? We always exiting the conversation instead of leaning in and seeking what God has in store for us? Are we zealous towards each other? Or have we lost our zeal? Are we selfless towards one another? Do we esteem others higher than ourselves, especially the ones sitting next to us? And are we always seeking their true good above ours, and believe that God, if we seek His righteousness first, that He'll add it all unto us? That's His promise. So let us seek first the kingdom of God, especially in our relationships, for all the law and the prophets hang on these two commands. Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. It's simple, but it's complicated. Helpful? So let's blast through the 4 inescapable areas of difference. We'll go into deep study on these in our next 3 sessions together. You'll do pre-work, watch a couple of videos that are about 7 minutes long. You'll get to write some things, and then we'll come together as a team and we'll discuss those things. All right? We're also going to offer this to you as couples. If you've got, if you are couples here, have significant others, whatever, we will offer as a gift, okay, that same material to your spouse, so that they can journey with you, and y'all can do that in the convenience of your own home, where you can go deep into these 4 inescapable areas and take a little temperament assessment that we've designed to drive that conversation. So once again, you'll hear more about that. So the 4 inescapable areas of difference are how you problem solve, process information, manage change, and face risks. There are 8 strengths associated with the scale. There are 4 strengths on the right side of the scale. There are 4 strengths on the left side of the scale. Can you tell me how many strengths are there? 8. Can you tell me how many weaknesses we're measuring? 0. Everyone brings a unique strength to the table in each one of these continuums. So the first one I like to talk about is problem solving. So what do you see? Baseball field. Tell me what's happening on the field. That's a strike. There you go. What's happening on the field? The game's fully in play, right? So what is the goal of the batter when the little round ball gets to the plate? Hit the ball, okay? What's the goal of the people out in the field? Field the ball and make an out. The field is divided into 2 areas of play. Can you tell me what those 2 areas are? Isn't that interesting? Infielders, when they hear the crack of the bat, what's the first step they take? Towards the ball. See, what it takes to field a ground ball is split-second timing. Charge that ground ball. Throw a runner out at first. Many times the play is often so close, tie goes to who? Outfielders, though, when they hear the crack of the bat, they do something distinctly different. Can you tell me what that is? They take a step back. Because what it takes to calculate and triangulate the catching of a fly ball is very different than what it takes to charge a ground ball. Make sense? So it is with me and you. Some of us are like the great infielders. Some of us are like the great outfielders. So what I would like to do is I would like to end our time together by doing an exercise. Those of you in the room that you feel like are on the aggressive side of the continuum, when a problem or challenge comes up, your natural tendency is to step up, take charge, take the bull by the horns. Raise your hand. Okay? All of those folks that just raised their hand, I'd like for you to come right over here to this corner. Okay? Those other individuals that tend to be more reflective, I'd like for you to move over to this corner. Okay? Yeah. Make a choice. Okay, so let me grab these markers. How are you? Hey. All right, reflectives right here. More take charge right here. Okay, reflectives over here.
Take chargers, come on.
Take chargers over here. Reflectives over here. Okay, so I'd like for y'all to elect a moderator, somebody that can write and spell. I write legibly and spell. That would not be me. No, right. No.
Write legibly and spell. There we
Okay.
go. That's our volunteer.
All right. Your name, ma'am?
Donna.
Donna?
Yes.
Thank you, Donna. Donna is our moderator over here. Okay, same over here. Somebody that can write legibly and spell. Once again, would not be me.
Anna.
Anna.
Oh, there, you're doing it
Brittany.
yourself.
Anna. Anna? Okay, Anna. All right, so here's what we need to do. All right. This flip chart and this flip chart moderators, okay, I'd like for you to take your team to those flip charts, okay, after they're already taking charge, okay, after this, okay. All right. A problem or challenge is sitting right here in the middle of the floor, okay. The aggressive folks reach down, they pick that problem up just in time to hear the pitter-patter of the feet of those folks taking a step away. You're looking at square in the eyes, and they're stepping away. Okay? What's the first thing comes across your mind about those people? Okay? No, don't say it. Man, I tell you got to hold these guys down over here. All right, so here's what I need you to do, moderator. When I get through giving these folks their instructions, take your team to the board. Everybody needs to participate, and I'd like for you to keep it on one sheet of paper, even if you need to move to columns. I'd like for you to write adjectives out of what it is that comes to your mind, okay, whenever you see these individuals taking a step away from you, okay? You got your assignment?
Got it.
All right, so now, you've got an assignment too, all right? And what was my moderator's name? Hannah? Anna. I'm so bad with names. Anna, I'm sorry, Anna. I'll get it though, Anna. Okay, so here we go. Proliver challenge. They pick it up. You don't even get a chance to size the problem up. All you see is the dust off their shoes. That's it. You can't see it. They got it. You see their back, dust off their shoes. What's the first thing you think about these folks? Now listen. They're going to take the gloves off, I promise. So let's have some fun, all right? Same thing. Even if you got to move to multiple columns, keep all your words on one sheet of paper, okay? What's the first thing comes across y'all's mind about those folks when it comes to problem solving? Everybody participate. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Go.
Fired.
Say what? Slap that.
You guys can't say that.
I told her she was on the wrong side. Chill out.
Reactive.
There you go.
Impulsive, maybe.
Teamwork, right?
Y'all keep it down just a little bit. I told y'all to take the gloves off. Okay, 1 minute. Y'all crystallize your thoughts. 1 minute. Down to 1 minute. Crystallize your thoughts. Which actually means arrogant, doesn't it?
Yeah, arrogant. Ooh, but like, what's the word for like mistake? I guess that's sloppy was good. A loose cannon.
Make sure arrogant gets on there. Make sure arrogant gets on there. Arrogant.
All right. Say what? They're focused?
Okay, 30 seconds. Yes, there is a prize.
That's what she said. I don't know.
Say it again.
Arrogant. Okay.
Okay, wrap it up. Wrap it up. Okay, teams, wrap it up. Wrap your thoughts. Okay. Moderators, Donna, grab your, somebody help her grab her flip chart, and I'd like for you to bring that right here. Don't show the other team, so keep it to your side. Okay, moderator, Anna, I'd like for you to bring your flip chart and the whole thing, and if you don't mind, don't let them see it. Okay.
Flip it over, Anna.
All right, let's turn this way, like this right here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right there.
And let's take, yes, sir, bring that right here and set that right there. That's perfect, right there, and turn it like this, just like this. Okay, great, awesome. Okay, Donna, I'd like for you to come stand right here. And Anna, I'd like for you to come stand right here. Okay, that's great, okay? So back just a little bit. Okay? All right. So I'd like for you to team to come stand behind you. Come on, team. So you're going to need some reinforcements, I promise. Okay? You guys come on in close. All right, Donna. So Donna, what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to look Anna square in the eyes, and I would like for you to conversationally go down your list and tell her exactly what you think about her when you're problem solving with her. Do we have the other mic? Mike, where'd the other mic go? It's the other one. It's this one. This is the one going to tape. Okay. All right, Donna. Conversationally. Yeah. Where are you going, Scott? Here we go.
Okay, Hannah.
Anna.
Why are you so weak and slow? And you don't get fired up.
What the what?
What the what?
What the what?
What's wrong with you? And y'all, you're so touchy, timid. You're a procrastinator.
There you go.
You're fearful. You're a follower, lazy, logical. Oh my gosh, too good to be true. You're not a thinker. Your head is in the sand. You're uncaring, ineffective, not motivated, and you're chicken. And you're neutral about everything. Tell us what you really think.
How are you feeling right about now, Anna? Do you feel the love?
I'm feeling it.
Not much love going on, is it? I don't even know why I have you around here. I mean, you just taking up space. You breathe in the air. Okay, it's your turn, Anna. All right. Conversationally, okay, I'd like for you to tell Donna exactly what you feel about her by problem solving.
Okay, Donna, you get frustrated extremely easily. Slapdash, which I still don't quite follow that one. They might have to explain that one. You're very aggressive, chaotic, reactive, for sure, impulsive. You need to take a breath every now and then. Haphazard, don't think about it, overconfident, sloppy, loose cannon, unwise, simpleton, and very arrogant.
Wait. Did you let them answer any of those, or did you put all of them?
I have a feeling that y'all have had a few of these conversations, and you're no. So, how are you feeling at this point about problem solving together? Not quite feeling the love either, are you? Right. And I'm
With a
getting
smile on my face.
right, and I'm getting tired of cleaning up your messes, right? And so this is the way, if we're honest with each other, that we actually think about each other. And to be quite frank, over the years, what I've seen is that the longer we're in a relationship, the more liberty we have to think this way. The longer that we're in a relationship, the more liberty we have to think this way, and the more power that we have. Okay? In other words, parent to child, boss to subordinate, manager to subordinate, the more power that we have, the more authority that we have in order to think this way. Okay? What do you think the relational capital is going to look like when we actually think this way about each other when we're trying to problem solve together? There is no relational capital, right? It's all a deficit. And we can't figure out why there's no efficiency or effectiveness. We can't figure out why we don't have any intimacy. We don't have oneness. We don't have a team that's gelled together, right? Because people don't feel valued.
Right.
They don't feel like they're making a contribution, and they think unless they're like you, they don't belong. And that they diminish your light somehow, and that somehow or another you're disrupting business, and that we can't meet our goals because you're not doing your part, right? How arrogant is that? We're a prideful, stiff-necked, arrogant people. And if we truly can see that for what it is and get our eyes off of the flesh that leads to what? Death. And get our eyes on the Spirit that leads to life and peace, I think our relationships will look a whole lot different. And boy, do our relationships need to look different. The way we work together, the way we team together, the way we husband and wife together, the way we family together needs to look different than it looks today. Can I get an agreement? Amen. It needs to look different than it looks today. We are in a terrible mess. A terrible mess. God intends for our differences to create balance. When I use the word submission, tell me the first thing, be honest. Tell me the first thing comes across to your mind, especially if we're Christ followers. Submission. Commitment. Okay. Something else comes to my mind. Weakness. Give in. Floor mat. Right? Tap out. That's what we've made the word submission. But do you know that there is no place in all of Scripture, nowhere, that God calls us to submit that's ever punitive? It's always prosperous. It always protects us. But yet it's the most difficult thing for us to do is submit, especially to our differences. Especially to our differences. Because I think mine are better than yours. So here's what I'd like for you to do, moderators. I'd like for you to go back to your respective corners, and I'd like for your team to flip the piece of paper. And then on this piece of paper, I would like for you to list out what is it that these folks bring to you that you don't naturally have, that if you actually embraced, it affords you a level of protection that you don't naturally have. It affords you something that you don't have, something more. And what is it that these folks bring to you that you don't naturally have, that if you were to submit to that, surrender to it, invite it in, it would afford you something that you didn't have. It would afford you more. Got it? I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Oops, I'm sorry, Don.
Okay.
Yes. And the microphone. Who has the microphone? Might not want to get that discussion on tape. No. What is it that the aggressive folks bring to you that you don't naturally have that affords you something? What is it that the reflective people bring to you that affords you something that you don't have?
I don't like this list.
Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute. Fun?
Fun. I've been through a lot of this with her. Just trying to get out of my aggressive, just trying to get to me, listen to her, be mean. And I'm like, well, I just want to deal with it. I'm done talking.
Yes.
Right. Okay, I've had enough. I'm done. Because I don't want to deal with it. But I've been dealing with me a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's good. Well,
yeah.
God's timing's perfect, isn't it?
yeah, it really is. This is.
So I pray that it will lead y'all to having a deeper conversation, and we'll invite y'all to go through that material together and just do it over your own dinner table.
I think that.
Because I'll teach the law of differences. I'll teach some different stuff that you heard tonight on those videos, and they're short, 6 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the one thing you said. we just came up here and talked to my son. My son's work, three of my sons work for me.
Uh-huh.
And they're hard to deal with because they're so much like me. I know what they're thinking, but I know they're full of shit.
Yeah.
Right? And she was talking, he was talking, and she was talking. I was trying to say something, and I just put my hand up,
Right.
like her, just be quiet.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
I didn't hush her.
Yeah.
She said, "You did good. You didn't shush me."
Right.
But there's not much difference.
Right.
But you're right.
Right. Yeah, but then seeking and granting forgiveness in that situation, and how you son see that.
Well, it was over the phone.
Right.
We're gonna have a conversation.
Okay, wrap your thoughts. All right. So here we go. Bring your moderators. Bring your stuff back. Yes, and we're gonna set them up in the same place. Just like that. Yep, good. Let's turn it a little bit more this way. There you go. And let's slide them together. That's good right there. Chris, thank you. Okay. All right. If you guys will slide in here next to Anna and slide up next to Donna, we're going to let you start first this time, Anna. Okay? And so, Anna, what I'd love for you to do is I'd like for you to look Donna in the eyes conversationally and tell her how much you appreciate her when problem solving together and what she affords you that you don't naturally have.
Okay. Donna, here's all the wonderful things I appreciate about you that you bring to the table when we have problems that arise. I appreciate your momentum. I appreciate how proactive and efficient you are. I love how you take action. You show endurance, spark, passion, urgency, variety, motivation, you show initiative, protection, boldness. You take risks, which are always needed, different perspective on things, and persistence.
Do you feel valued now, Donna? And not only do you feel valued, right? It's like Donna keeps us out of the rut, right? They keep us up on top of the dry land. And we need those people that keep us out of the rut, right? Great, thank you. All right, Donna, I'd love for you to conversationally tell Anna how much you appreciate her.
Okay, Anna, I think you're very patient. You have good perspective. You love to think. You're calm. You're always at peace. You have good intuition. You're caring. You listen well. You have structure. You're humble about things. You have loyalty. You look out for the blind spot. Oh, I'm sorry.
Talking with those hands.
Okay, yes, I'm a hand person. And we feel safe with you. You have balance. You're caution about things. And you always have a good second opinion. You're a great sounding board. And above all, you're wise beyond measure.
How do you guys feel now? Okay, so I love to say it this way. When it's a fire and we need to put it out, like now, who should take charge? But when it's a complex problem, something has lots of tenants, and if we solve that problem quickly, we'll compound the problem. Who should take the lead? Can you see that? God has created a unique strength for complex problem solving and for firefighting.
So
Even-
dumb people on this side and smart people on that side. We got it.
So I like to even say it this way. Elizabeth Ann, when we're dealing with the phone work that has to take care and get the details written out and so on and so forth, I pass that off to Elizabeth. She gets all that. And once she's got it and she's confident about what she has, do you think she's going to solve the problem?
No.
What she's going to do is she's going to come to me and she's going to go, here's what I got. And here's what I think. Now it's up to you to solve the problem.
Right.
You guys see that? Okay? And I'll go deal with the tough stuff. Right? Where it's confrontational. Do you think she likes confrontation? No way. I thrive in confrontation. I mean, and I grew up in a house that was who could stay the longest and who could yell the loudest, right? In her household, her family of origin, along with her temperament, was who could stay away the longest, right? And who could be the quietest. How do you think that worked out in our marriage when we got our first altercation? Not well. Oh my gosh. Do you guys see it? Yeah. Right. So let me ask you a question, Anna. Okay? Very important to watch. Can you, I need an answer now. Can you solve the problem now? Can you do that?
Yes.
Her
but
blood
with her
pressure's
help.
already ticking up. You guys see that? Okay? She can. But let me ask you a question, Anna. Does that take energy from you or give it to you?
When getting help from her?
No, when I ask you to solve the problem. I've been solving all these problems, Anna. You need to step up now. Come on. Take energy from you or give it to you? What do you guys think? Takes it away. Okay? When I take a strength and I overutilize it, okay, it will take your energy away. Right? It will take your energy. It's like the left and the right hand, right? Okay? Can you, Donna, slow down, take the time to calculate and triangulate the solving of the complex problem? Can you do that?
I can.
You can, but will that take energy away from you or give it to you?
Oh, it take energy away from me because I'm not.
Because it's
you
not
know,
natural.
Right.
Right? So you start seeing these things and you go, okay, this makes sense. It's not natural, okay? When we hire somebody to communicate our product effectively, can just anybody do that? If we train everybody how to do that, do you think there are some temperaments that do that more easily than others? Sure they do. But once we've influenced someone to our point of view or our position, do we now expect them to put all the details together and make sure that it gets to the closing room? Probably not. We might want to pass that baton to somebody else that does that well. Does that make sense? A team approach. And do we see the value in each other? And how do we protect each other when the details aren't there? When I don't understand that form. Why do I need to fill that form out? Doesn't make any sense to me because it protects us and them. Right? Make sense? Okay. Helpful? There are 3 more areas that we're going to talk about over the next 3 weeks. This is only one. Hopefully it was transformational, and hopefully it will give you the ability to have certain conversations with people, maybe in this room, maybe outside of this room. And I pray that God will give you the grace and the power to humbly live tomorrow different with them than you live today. When I looked Elizabeth in the eye and I said, honey, I have been judging you. I've been walling you off. I've been thinking certain things about you that just are not true. And I need you to forgive me. I have been an ignorant man, and now I know the truth. And it's going to set us free. I'm going to live different tomorrow with you than I live today. Will you forgive me? Test that. For God is good. Test that in your most tried relationship and see what God does. Test it. For He gives grace to the humble, but He resists the proud. Humility. Not thinking of ourselves higher than we should, but with sober and humble judgment we esteem others higher than ourselves. Let us live our life that way. As humble servants, standing in the gap. Do you know what the gap is? The time between Christ's ascension and the time that He comes back to build a new city. He left me and you in the gap to love the people in which we encounter. He left me and you in the gap to love the people in which we encounter. Love God, love others. Simple, but difficult. Thank you. You guys can go back to your seats. Scott, thank you for entrusting your team today.